And welcome to another episode of Poli-Tricks with Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies. Mercer, do your thing.
All right, we're going to jump right into it. We got Mr. Blue, of course, our showrunner slash producer. We got Mercedes in the house. Hey, Mercedes. And
hey, my bad.
I got a couple of really quick hits to do before we get into the meat and potatoes of the day. We got I just found this out today. There is a new app called Parler, which is supposed to be like conservative Twitter, and it got like 1 million uploads basically after Joe Biden got elected. And I was just like,
I signed up.
You signed up? You just want to see?
I just want to see what they're talking about.
I put it like this. I don't really care what they're talking about. You know what? We'll let the FBI monitor that. They're good at that. Because I'm just going to be cracking on them where they're going to go next. And then Ben Carson got coronavirus. I'm going to tell y'all something right now. If you had a message for Herman Cain, tell it to Ben Carson, and he'll make sure that Herman Cain gets it. Because he's as good as dead. Because I mean, if Christie survived coronavirus and Herman Cain didn't, it's curtains for Uncle Ben. So if you had something to say to Ben Carson, say it now, because you may not get a chance in a week or two. I know it's being grim, but I'm just reading the patterns. But
who's Ben Carson?
Ben Carson was the neurosurgeon turned conservative.
Oh, that guy, the housing guy
housing guy.
Yeah.
So, but I will say this, Donald Trump got ousted, and we're having a great time. We're having a fantastic time. I got memes, I got jokes, I'm all over the place. I'm happy, I'm chipper. I mean, you figure Donald Trump lost in a race that really should have been more of a blowout, but okay. I mean, there were celebrations in London, celebrations in Paris, all over the world. They were happy. And now people is like, you know what? Now we can go back to having a normal life. And now, you know what I haven't done in a long time? I haven't gone to brunch in a long time. We should just get brunch. There's no time for brunch. Okay? Because here's the thing. We still got coronavirus to deal with. We still have our shitty economy to deal with. We have climate change to deal with. We got domestic terrorists to deal with. Okay? There's no time to rest. Okay? As of I started writing this yesterday, and they said Joe Biden was putting together a 12-person task force to help corral coronavirus. And I think he did do something today. I figure he's president-elect. There's not a whole heck of a lot he could do except to plan. So if he's planning, let him plan. Okay? But I applaud the fact he's trying to hit the ground running. But this whole thing about, now we can go back to normal. No, there's no more normal. So don't get happy. Don't get complacent. Don't get, now we can go to the zoo. No. Because we're in exactly the same place we were a week ago. Now, I will say this. Donald Trump right now is going to be in office for another 2 months. And he's looking to do maximum damage on his way out. He's going to make it hard for Joe Biden in his first couple of months, making all types of executive orders. Mitch McConnell has already said that he will limit Joe's cabinet picks to who the Republicans feel are okay, which is the exact opposite of how it works. Because we put in all of his shitty picks. Well, I will say this, okay? Those picks go through the Senate. Like someone like Betsy DeVos. I'll have to say, not a single Democrat voted for Betsy DeVos. And a matter of fact, 2 Republicans, Murkowski and Susan Collins, voted against her. And what's his name? Mike Pence had to come and break the tie to get her in there. So it's not always, lay down and die for the Democrats. They did fight against DeVos because they just saw like, holy cow, this chick is not qualified, But it's going to be hard starting out because Donald Trump is going to make it that way. So this whole, brunch thing that people have been talking about lately, it's not going to happen. Not for a long time. Okay? So cancel your brunch reservations and get started on what you were going to do. Blue, what do you have on your mind?
This election. In the 2020 presidential election, Trump saw increased turnout among white women, African Americans, Hispanics, and likely Asian Americans when compared to his own campaign for presidency in 2016. In contrast, he did worse among white males in 2020 as compared to 2016. It definitely has some kind of impact during this election, especially in Florida. If this trend continues, it is possible that the Republican Party's constituents and their diversity could increase over the next few years. I was curious about other people's opinions on this matter, and if anyone had any insight into why this was the case. Why do you think his minority turnout increased? And do you all think that this could impact the dynamic of future elections?
Yeah, I definitely do. There was this video I'm going to drop in the group, and they were talking about how, of course, Trump will probably run again in 2024, and how it may affect him. This one may affect him 4 years from now if he were to run again, and it's more on the end of him possibly winning again. So, and it was based on the swap of votes, increased black male vote for whatever fucking reason, and things like that. And me personally, if that were the case, I would honestly would have assumed that he would have won this time. But I don't see, with 4 years without him, Biden doing his best to build a better economy, and then him having more supporters. It's kind of like, that out of sight, out of mind type thing. If he's out of office for 4 years, he's not running this country anymore. I think most of his supporters, other than the ones who were like diehard, like ass lickers, everybody else is going to move on and actually probably feel more comfortable in this economy, especially the supporters that he lost. To lose a lot of the white male vote is a lot. That means a lot towards the type of person that Trump is, as well as him possibly getting back into office 4 years from now. Right. I don't think it's going to happen, me personally. But to each his own. If he wants to spend a few $1 million, maybe $1 billion or so, to campaign himself again, go right ahead. But I don't think he will have the support of the people anymore. And then, did you guys see where he's pushing for the recount in Georgia? He does understand, even with that, with Pennsylvania, but Biden still won. Yeah, you can recount Georgia all day. He still won Pennsylvania, and all he needed was 6 electoral votes, and he got that.
Yeah, I mean, you figure so long as he locks down Nevada and Pennsylvania, he'll have like 276 electoral votes. So even if he loses, so even if he gets, let's just say he gets Arizona, right? Let's just say, for argument's sake, Arizona goes over to Biden, right? And then he still gets North Carolina and Alaska and let's say Georgia goes over to him, right? He's still going to be short, and Biden will still have 276 electoral votes. So this whole thing about, it's desperation. He's not clinging to power because he wants the power. He wants to go play golf. He knows that Southern State of New York is coming to get him. He knows Deutsche Bank is coming to get him because he owes them like hundreds of millions of dollars that he hasn't paid on. He hasn't even paid on the interest on it.
But the key thing is, why do you think the minority turnout increased? I was thinking as far as black males was concerned, it was basically black toxicity, male toxicity. I mean, they see a bravado, they see a swag, even as disgusting as it may be, and they turn to that, you know what I mean? When they look at Biden, they might look at an old fart, the white norm, and so they turned away from that, you know what I mean?
What exactly about Donald Trump is swag-estic, though? I mean, realistically, a lot of the black people...
Just the way he talks about people, the way he downs people, that's a real, like,
he's illiterate.
That's a hip hop thing. That's a bravado thing. That's you know what I'm saying? The way he just talks down. You gotta think a lot of these people that's into this hip hop thing, into this rap thing, that's into this music thing that a lot of black men align themselves with, aren't the most articulate, intelligent people on the planet. You know what I'm saying?
But that doesn't say a lot for the black male.
No, it doesn't say a
That's
lot.
actually
That's what I'm
fucked up.
saying. I'm taking away from. And I'm sorry, I have to. I have to take it
Yeah.
away, and I have to take it away from them. And unfortunately, I mean, I have to say that I'm a black male too. I just don't align with that. But what other reason would there be for them to align with that? A person who's a racist, a person who's a misogynist, a person who's a sexist. I mean, why? What justification can you give that? Because he's doing dirt and getting away with it, or got away with it?
I mean,
Right.
to me, it's kind of like why black people cheered for OJ. I mean, they knew he was guilty. I mean, I know he's guilty. You
He
know?
ain't guilty. Them gloves didn't fit.
but I will say that, I mean, you figure how you gonna plant evidence on somebody who's guilty, and then when the evidence doesn't fit, it gets them acquitted. Thanks, Mark Furman, jackass. But it's kind of like people, I mean, they knew OJ was guilty because who else could have killed those people? You know, it's basically they were just happy to see a black man beat the system. That was their whole thing, because OJ didn't even like black people until he got arrested. You know, what did Jay-Z say in that song Story of OJ? He said, he's like, I'm not black, I'm OJ. He's like, okay. But basically, I think you're right. I think you're right, Blue. People just see the fact that he does whatever he wants to and gets away with it. We were talking about that last week. You know, he breaks laws every day, emoluments clause, you know, all types of stuff. He breaks every day, and no one does anything about it.
So he's a criminal, as this country portrays the average black man. Great.
Yeah.
But he's getting away with it. Niggas not gonna get away with it. Sorry.
And never have and never will, and don't and get tried with stuff that ain't got nothing to do with them in the first place. How many people are innocent on death row or in jail?
Fact.
How many people in jail for the most minorest of crimes like marijuana possession for tens of 20s of years, and a white person that can come with a whole key of cocaine and they get a slap on the wrist?
Yeah. And it's funny, you know, when someone mentioned that about Joe Biden, about Hunter Biden, that, you know, Hunter Biden was addicted to crack. And I'm not going to down Hunter Biden, you know, because I know he went through a lot of problems, and, you know, I can you know, even somebody who's not a drug addict, I can understand where he's coming from. But you figure if Hunter Biden was smoking crack, say, I don't know, 25 years ago, you know, if he got caught with crack then, when that crime bill was really in effect, before Obama kind of undid some of it, how much would Hunter Biden still be in prison now?
He would not be in prison, period. He would have got probation, a year maybe, mandated treatment, probably 12 NA groups or something like that.
Yeah. And basically, I didn't put it in my notes, I apologize, but there's one state who decriminalized drugs, and basically if you get caught with, you know, with drugs, they'll just put you in rehab. They're not going to put you in prison.
North Carolina kind of got that. At least here in Durham County, we got drug court, and it's a pretty good program.
Yeah, and when people do it around the world, it actually works. You know, there was a God, what was it? Traffic, but not the one that came out in the U.S. The one that came out in England, the original one. When the who was it? Long story short, when they were looking for the girl, for Caroline. And the guy pretty much just her drug partner pretty much told her where she was going to be. And the guy was like, well, why are you helping me? And he figured they'll get resistance. He was like, you know, I wish somebody was looking for me. You know, it's a lot for a lot of these people who are you know, who are destitute. They don't have anybody who really cares about them. You know, you put them in a program with professionals who will give them the care that they need. And maybe it may lessen the chance that they can relapse. You know, I know when people are on heroin, it's not like, man, that was a crazy 4 months. No, that's like a lifetime thing. You know, it's going to take years to get past it. And being in prison is not going to help. So it's a great thing that they're doing that. You know, I will say one thing about Joe, though. Okay. Bernie Sanders would have got like 400 electoral votes, right? And here's the answer to your other question, Mercedes, about why Joe, you know, why minority support is tripping away from Joe, because Joe doesn't really stand for anything. Okay. Joe's victory is not a mandate for centrism. Okay. It's a rebuke of Donald Trump. Centrism is the reason why Democrats keep losing, is what got Donald Trump elected in the first place. Because they're listening to never Trumpers who are nothing more than like ticks and leeches and parasites, instead of listening to the voters. You figure like this, the squad easily won their re-election bids, okay? And they still did the work. So there's a pundit on YouTube, the Humanist Report, right? I'm not going to rehash his work because usually if I talk about another pundit's work, it's because I have something to add to it. His piece was excellent. There's nothing to add to it. So look up Humanist Report, and he did an excellent piece on how Ilhan Omar and Rashida Tlaib worked their asses off to deliver Minnesota and Michigan to Joe Biden. They could have just sat in their recliners and got themselves a coffee culata and just won their re-election. That's how popular they are in their states. But they were out there in the streets, getting people registered, getting people excited, getting them to the polls. And that's why they won, not because of Joe. Okay, Joe Biden's voter enthusiasm was lower than Hillary's. Hillary's, the woman who lost to Donald Trump in the first place. So we could all see Joe's brains are turning into tapioca pudding. And thanks to Obama pulling the strings in the background, we ended up with Biden, and no one was happy about that, except the centrist, of course. Okay, it took a lot for people like me, who told Hillary to fuck off in 2016, to vote for a worse candidate than Joe Biden. I'm going to say it right now. You could fight me if you want to. Joe Biden is a worse candidate than Hillary Clinton, and Hillary Clinton sucked. Okay, and why did Hillary Clinton suck? Because she didn't really stand for anything, and Joe Biden stands for even less. Okay, people who voted for Joe didn't think it's because Joe was amazing. It's because we despise Trump more than we despise Biden. So while I'm ecstatic to see Trump go, and you're going to see my feed with a whole bunch of memes and stuff like that, I'm not optimistic for the future. You know why? Because it's not because I can see the future. It's because I can see the past. And I can see these patterns repeating themselves over and over and over again. Okay? It's the same fight, just a different enemy. Okay? I will say one thing that's going to get me canceled by a few people. I'm going to say it anyway. Everyone's doing cartwheels about Kamala Harris being VP. I say let them do their cartwheels, because it is a historic moment in U.S. history to have a black female VP, and she's Asian too, because she's half Indian, right? So she's checking off a lot of boxes here. Okay, let's remember one thing: other countries have had female heads of state for decades. New Zealand they have a female prime minister. She just won re-election. Okay. England has had female heads of states. And I don't mean Queen Elizabeth. Okay. Even Pakistan has had a female prime minister. Pakistan in the 80s. And she was elected twice. So let's not celebrate too hard for catching up to the rest of the world. Okay. Let's make sure that we can change the system in order to make sure that people are put in office because of, what they could do for the people as opposed to the color of their own skin. Okay. Then we could really do those cartwheels. Hey, I'll do those cartwheels with you when that's the case. Okay. Blue, what else did you have on your mind?
Yes. Obamaism. In the primary, Joe Biden ran as an heir to Obamaism. In general, he ran on a call to restore decency and the soul of this nation. Will Biden's presidency differ from Obama's most in that Biden would direct attention to healing the great political divide? Which issues that were prioritized during Obama's presidency, such as healthcare, immigration, and multilateralism, will be similarly prioritized by President Biden, and which will be neglected? Which issues that Obama did not act on, either because of Congress or not enough time, will Biden prioritize or similarly neglect? Are there any countries where Obama and Biden would clearly not treat similarly in diplomacy? I'll also be curious to hear whether you didn't think Biden's election will be seen as a continuation of Obamaism, or whatever you want to call it, because I just made that up and it sounds a little too Fox Newsy, or a new brand of the Democratic Party.
I look at it like this, with Obama. The reason why people were disappointed in Obama is if you look at the polls, right, the exit polls, you look at 2008 and 2012, people were a lot less enthusiastic about Obama than they were in 2008 because Obama ran as a populist and he governed as a centrist. Okay. So there are a lot of people who didn't really like Joe Biden basically because they figured, okay, it's just going to be another 4 years of Obama, being, of course, that he was he was his vice president. There is I want to say it's PolitiFact. One of them, they have like an Obama meter because Obama made about like 300 or 400. I don't know if it was that many. That sounds like a lot. Campaign promises. And all throughout Obama's presidency, they basically rated them as completed, and then they really broke it down as to whether it was stopped by the Republicans or whether he just didn't do it. I'm actually gonna try and find it, and I'm pretty sure it's still up someplace. But they call it the Obama meter. And like I said, I liked Joe Biden when he was Obama's VP because I didn't know anything about Joe Biden. And then after 2016, I started to look up Joe Biden. I'm like, wait, he's the bankruptcy bill guy? Oh my God. But I mean, some people call Obama the last boss of liberalism. And it's basically what he is. He's still the most powerful Democrat. Look at how he changed the face of the primaries with just a few phone calls. But the problem is, I mean, is he gonna use his powers for good, or is he just gonna pacify us while he goes jet ski with Richard Branson and making Netflix specials?
Damn, I just got a message in my inbox. They said why we can't get a real black as a VP or president instead of these half breeds.
Ooh. Yeah, that's kind of harsh. That is kind of harsh, And I don't even like the term half-breed because it makes it sound like you're like a laboratory monster as opposed to a human being. I wouldn't even call someone that as an insult. So I know people think it's like kind of snarky. It's kind of insulting. Like
bed winch isn't the worst thing you said.
Well, because it's true. It's absolutely true. It's harsh. It's insulting, but it's true. I mean, yes, Kamala Harris is half black and she's half, she's half Indian, but that's just life. Being a bed wench is a choice. But I will say this about President Obama. He reminds me of Michael Jordan, is that even though he's putting your dreams on a plate and eating your dreams right in front of you, you still can't hate the guy. I don't know what it is. It's like just overflowing with charisma, I guess. Yeah, Obama's still the reason. I mean, he's not the reason why, but there are so many people who are, oh, you know what? Here's a perfect example. All those people who almost froze to death in Nebraska, right? And the ones that had to go to the hospital, and they're going to end up with those medical bills. If Obama had gone through with the public option, right? I'm pretty sure we wouldn't even have Trump because those people would have probably voted for Obama. Because when their fingers almost fell off, at least they wouldn't have to worry about, really high medical bills. Keep in mind, a public option is not free healthcare. It's just cheaper healthcare that competes with private healthcare. The basic term I could use about Obama is all that could have been. He had an opportunity to be the best president who ever lived, and he fumbled the football. So. Here's a question that always goes on in my mind. Is America a racist country? Mercedes, what do you think? You think America is a racist country?
be completely honest, okay, to be completely honest with you, I guess it's kind of hard to say because within our borders, absolutely. I don't really know how they treat immigrants on the way in though. So in order for it to be considered a racist country, I mean, the people are racist, that's for damn sure. Are
Yeah.
the majority of Americans racist? I don't believe so. But there are enough as to where it places a bad look on this country. And then you have to consider the outsiders also, because they probably face a different form of racism. Ours is definitely oppression over years and historically. We live in a country that oppressed our people that still can't stand us, but basically love to be or take black things until it's time to support or be black. So that's a total different fight within itself. But we have to consider other forms of racism. I would say 75, 25.
I would
75
say
not, 25 is.
I would say yes, based strongly on systematic racism, systemic racism, based on housing, based on legal, based on education. Those are the foundations of any country, and that makes it inherently racist.
I mean, I would have to say that, I mean, yeah, I know a lot of, I mean, it's hard for me to, not really hard, but it's weird for me to say that America's a racist country because I grew up, I mean, I was born in Brooklyn, but I grew up in the suburbs in Long Island, you know, and I grew up in a mixed neighborhood, you know, and we didn't color code our friends. When I went over to my friend's house, I wasn't, you know, so-and-so's black friend. I was their friend. My parents were the same way. They didn't color code their friends. So, you know, George wasn't their Puerto Rican friend or their Italian friend. They were just friends, you know. So for me to come out and say that America's a racist country is kind of like people are like, well, what about all that stuff that happened to you in the past? Here's my thing about that. I mean, are there racists in other countries across the world? Oh, yeah, absolutely. That's, you know, that's a definite truth. But here's the thing about that. How many of those countries, and there are a few, you know, in developed nations, think about England and Brexit. You know what? You know why Brexit happened? Because after they joined the European Union, they started to see an influx of immigrants from all over Europe, you know, and they didn't like that. You want to know how reactionary Brexit was? And you can look this up too. Don't take my word for it. The day after the Brexit vote happened, right? You want to know what the number one thing that was Googled after that? What is Brexit? So they voted for something that they didn't understand because all they thought was, hey, we need to take our country back from these immigrants. So let's get out of the European Union, even though that's going to cost them big time. So the reason why I think that America is a racist country is because we've allowed racists. I mean, here's the thing. You could have a racist system and then you could always work to change it. Because don't forget that the Constitution is a living document. It's meant to be changed over time as things progress. But we keep things the way they are because it favors one group of people. Why do you think the Second Amendment hasn't changed? Don't forget, when the Second Amendment was written, it was written maybe what? I don't know, 20, 30 years before the revolver was even invented. So everybody still had single shot muskets. You know what they used to call some of those revolutionary soldiers the Minutemen? It's not a sexual thing. It's basically because they were trained to load their guns in under a minute. That's how long those guns take to load. So
That's what she said.
So the fact that we still have that same law, you know, and which they use wrong all the time, is because they don't want this thing to change. So yeah, we've had plenty of amendments over the years, but the racism is still baked into the pie. And it takes Herculean efforts to change stuff. You figure ever since African Americans were freed, they were allowed to vote. And then, well, at least the men, women didn't get a chance to vote until 1920. And they were even in Congress. And then, of course, we all know that what stopped all that? Ku Klux Klan, you know? And then you figure blacks were freed in what, 1865? It was basically 100 years later until there were laws written to protect the black vote, minority vote, pretty much, So, when the Civil Rights Act happened. So the reason why I say that this is having racist people in your country doesn't really make you a racist nation, because there's racism everywhere you go. It's the fact that these racists are allowed to climb into the government and climb to unprecedented heights in the government. Our president's a racist. Talk about Trump. He is still our current president, at least for another couple of months. So just the fact that he made it to office. And he wasn't like a fake populist who just turned around and got the president like, haha, I'm racist. No, that's how he started. He started by saying that Mexicans are thieves and rapists. Some might be good people. If you look hard enough, you might find a good person in there. You figure he had a program where he ripped babies and children from their mother's arms to deter immigrants from coming into the country.
Dude, that was an Obama thing. Don't go there with that.
No. With Obama, it was an anomaly. It was because of a mix of rules about where they could keep kids caged, because they didn't want to cage them with adults, So it was an anomaly with Obama. So yes, Obama did build the cages. That's a fact. But Trump filled them. Stephen Miller, that was his whole plan. That was his goal. That was his objective, to take these people away from their kids in order to deter other people trying to seek asylum. Hey, if you come and seek asylum, we're going to take your kids away. Even though seeking asylum in the US by crossing through a legal point of entry is legal. You're allowed to do that. And you're allowed to get your day in court. And here's the thing. Most people who seek asylum don't even get a chance to stay. Because after they have their court date, if they don't have enough proof that they're in danger, they get sent home anyway. But they are allowed to have their day. So, yeah, I do think that America's a racist country, but I think there's still time to turn it around. Not a lot of time.
I don't think we'll see it in this lifetime.
No, I'll be dead long before that happens.
About 100 years, maybe 200. When the sun actually implodes and burns our retinas.
And we're all just blind. They had an old movie called Day of the Triffids, where they had a meteor. And basically, anybody who looked at the meteor was immediately blinded. And then for the people who could still see, it dropped spores and they were like killer plants killing people. So it's a pretty grim movie. So that'll probably be America in 100 years. We're fighting Triffids and then everyone else is just blind. I will.
Why does every picture I can find of a black Republican, them people look like they got like severe mental health disorders?
You talk about the Joker up front with the blonde hair. She's just like, why he's so serious?
She looks stupid. She looks fucking stupid. She really does.
No one's that happy about Trump. They're not. Not even Diamond and Silk, and they were getting paid.
Not even Ivanka, and she was getting paid. I mean, not Ivanka, Melania.
Oh, Melania. I don't know. I don't know who she called first. Her divorce lawyer or her realtor. I don't know. But she's out. She ain't staying with Trump. If she stays with Trump past 2021, I'd be shocked and amazed. I don't know.
Unless that's an ironclad prenup. You're right.
Oh, yeah. I will say this about my black Republican friends. I don't know. I'm going to sound like a pompous jackass. I think I'm just bored with them now. Because I don't get it. It's kind of like a Rubik's Cube that you've been trying to solve for years. Then you're just like, I don't know why I'm wasting my time with this. Just throw it in the box of your other toys. You know what
I mean, when it comes down to black Republicans, it's one thing to be a Republican based on how you were raised and just to be an outright Trump supporter. I don't see how they can do it. I don't understand it.
I have, like, a lot of my friends' parents were Republicans, right? But they were Republicans back in like the 50s when he has had to make that picture bigger. I know, with my luck, that woman's probably gonna like listen to the show and then file like a defamation suit against us because we said she looked like a jackass. But I mean, My whole thing is this. I understand why rich people.
Fuck that Zoom, Blue. Oh my God. I decided to look down at my iPad and I saw that bullshit.
You figure the whole thing about being a Republican is, or any political party, it's not a sports team. You don't just stay there until you die. You know, you're allowed to switch teams if the team you're on is not doing anything for you. Okay. So I understand why Black Republicans, oh my God, this dude's haircut.
He looks like a good old boy, right? Like just a...
And look at his face. He was just like
am I doing good, master?
Look, he was saying, what's the matter, boss? We sick? Well, if that was during coronavirus, then yes, y'all both are sick. with his fucking seersucker suit. Okay, I'm gonna stop now. I apologize. Let me get back on track here. The whole thing about, I can understand why there are some Black people who don't want to vote Democrat. I mean, I didn't vote for Hillary. I mean, I voted down ticket, but I didn't vote for Hillary Clinton, in 2016, because I didn't feel like the Democrats were really doing enough for us. So if
I really wanted to vote like erratically, but I couldn't really. I voted a straight ticket this time, but I really wanted to see if I could find some reason to vote for somebody else, and I just couldn't justify it, so I just voted a straight ticket.
It's hard. It was really hard because they just don't have anything for us. It's like my favorite analogy, where you're just like, you know what? I'm sick of these bullshit ass vampire hunters, and I could just see a vampire be like, "Oh, you sick of these dumb vampire hunters not doing their jobs? Why don't you come on over and hang out with the vampires? Hey, man, we got cake, we got vitamins to just make your blood just sweet and healthy."
Sounds like True Blood.
Nutrition. Come on over. We're not going to eat you right away. We got to fatten you up first before we take a bite out of your neck. But it's just kind of like, what are they getting out of it? Out of being a Republican, especially being a Trump fan? What exactly are they getting out of it? And no one's been able to really tell me. They've been, when I talk to Black Republicans, they could tell me about how shitty Joe Biden is all day. And I'm like, yeah, I agree with you about that. You're preaching to the choir. The fact is, what are you getting out of it by voting Republican? As opposed to saying, well, if you want somebody who's doing something for you, why don't you just vote Green Party? If that's the case. But I don't know. They've never been able to tell me a good reason why they voted Republican.
What's the grounding of the Green Party? What are they about?
Basically, like Bernie Sanders on steroids. So they're all for funding the police, free public education, Medicare for all.
So you said Bernie on steroids. So like,
Bernie is not that up tempo.
Bernie on steroids.
Well, okay, that would be up tempo. You're right about that. I will say this. I saw somebody going back to one of your points, Mercedes. I did see someone on Twitter who, I didn't want to go into the polling just yet because they're still counting votes, so they'll be counting votes for the next couple of weeks. They like to call the races when everything is insurmountable, like California or Washington State, So that's when they'll call it. But there are still a lot of votes to be counted, Don't forget, Hillary didn't get her lead over Trump with a popular vote until like weeks after the election last time. So it's going to be a while. And then I want to look at the end results and find out what's what. But there was a huge uptick in Black men voting for Trump. I think as far as the exit polls go, you figure it was 91% Black women voting for Biden, and then I think it was like 12 or 13%. I mean, the numbers were kind of weird, but it was a lot more Black men voting for Trump this time around. And there was one woman on Twitter, I should have captured her tweet. She was basically just like, she saw it as a direct, as just direct hatred of Black women to vote for Trump.
Well, damn, I don't know if it was all that.
I felt the same way. I thought that was a bit hyperbolic, but I mean, it might be true. I don't know.
No, like we said earlier, though, is that there's something about him that might be, especially to like lower functioning people, brain capacity, that's admiring. Like, wow, he gets shit done. Oh, he doesn't take no shit. Oh, he does what he wants to do. Some people really admire that type of bullyism. I mean, you remember when you was in school, there was the kids that didn't intercept the bully, wasn't bullied, but sat back in awe of the bully, kind of like that.
I could dig that for sure. You know, definitely. But I will say this though, you know, going back to this whole thing between the left and the right, not even the left and the right, just the left and the centrists. You know, it's already started, the infighting between the leftist and the centrist. All right, because you figure Joe Biden barely squeaked by, right? You figure if he gets Georgia in the end, that'll push him to just over 300, right? I think Obama was at like 330. I didn't pull the numbers. I think Obama, when he won, he was at like 330 something in 2012. I don't remember what he was in 2008. 2008 was like a landslide. I don't even think John McCain passed 200 electoral votes. You know, I'll have to look that up. But here's, you know, like I said, I didn't want to delve too big into the numbers, but there was one number that really jumped out at me. Okay, that was this was from New York Times, from their exit polls, and they said, was your vote for president mainly for your candidate or against his opponent? Okay, so you figure for Donald Trump, they said was it 53% of the people who voted for Trump said they voted because they were voting for Donald Trump. 30% said that they were voting against Joe Biden. Okay. For Joe Biden, 46% said, now keep one thing in mind. I want you to bear with me. I'm reading this sideways. So that's why the numbers are not going to line up. 46% of people who voted for Joe Biden said, you know, they voted for Joe. 68% said, no, we're voting against Trump. 68%. You know what that means? That means no enthusiasm. So
maybe it was a mix of both and they just went with the stronger answer. Because I just don't really think 68% voted against him like that. I really do think that in some ways they align themselves with the Democratic Party because they always have.
That's true. No, I mean, they were asked this directly. They were asked that direct question. Like, did you vote for Biden or against Trump? They were asked that directly, and they said, yeah, we voted against Trump.
And I have to say, even though I never have not voted a straight Democratic ticket, my vote mainly was against Trump. I don't care for Biden by any means. I saw too much evidence that aligned itself very similarly to Trump that made me not like Biden, with the exception of the sexual stuff.
Yeah.
Which is not going to make me vote one way or another per se, because that's in his past, but stuff that he's currently doing that he did in the past, that impacts moving forward. I think people can be forgiven for their sins. I just don't think they should carry their sins into the White House.
Right. And like I said, with Joe Biden, there's no character arc. You know, we talked about Ed Markey. You know, Ed Markey started out as a centrist, and over the years he became more and more progressive. That's why when he ran against Joe Kennedy, when Joe Kennedy III ran against him, you know, he's part of that political dynasty. And Ed Markey was able to actually he beat him by almost 10 points because the left came in and helped out Ed Markey to win that election.
Additionally, I mean, like you said, what is Biden's plan? What is his message? It wasn't clear. The only thing he was able to indicate definitively was that he wasn't Trump, and that's just not enough.
I mean, here's the thing. We talked about this on Saturday, right? If you look at the Platinum Plan versus the Lift Every Voice, and me and Odie talked about this on Saturday. I'm like, how condescending can y'all be? The Platinum Plan, I get it, because Lil Wayne got platinum teeth. All black people like platinum. Fuck out of here. And then Lift Every Voice. And here, I almost lost my black card because I forgot that Lift Every Voice and Sing was the Black National Anthem. I thought it was just an old Negro spiritual. And I was like, no, you had to correct me. She was like, no, that's the Black National Anthem. And I was like, ooh, I suck. But just calling it that just to get our attention, I think is just condescending. But I will say this: if you read Joe Biden's plan, I think it's like 12 or 13 pages. It's pretty detailed, right? It's a pretty detailed plan on how he plans on helping Black America. And then, of course, Donald Trump's Platinum Plan, as my friend Nat Turner on his show, Waking a Giant, said, it's basically you could fit it on a postcard, like Donald Trump's plan. You know, Joe Biden, I went through his website. He has a lot of detailed political plans. A lot of them could work. Here's the problem. He's not talking about any of it because he doesn't plan on doing any of it. That's the problem. When you talk to working class folks who either voted for Trump in 2016 or voted for him again in 2020, when they ask why they don't think the Democrats, is because they were saying the Democrats don't stand for anything. Right? You figure Rashida Tlaib and Ilhan Omar, right? All the work that they did to help get Joe Minnesota and Michigan. What was their big reward? They got dragged by centrists and never Trump Republicans on MSNBC. They had Claire McCaskill, who got curb stomped by her opponent in the I don't know if it was in the midterms or what have you. And now she's a correspondent on MSNBC and giving advice to people on how to win elections when she couldn't even win her own re-election. She got curb stomped by some Republican douchebag because she tried to pretend like, Trump, I like Trump too. Vote for me. We've gone over this a million times. They're not going to vote for Republican light when they could just vote for the Republican. It's like not being diabetic, but eating diet pancake syrup. Like, why would you do that? Diet pancake syrup is terrible. Just get pancake syrup. You know? So you have Claire McCaskill, you have John Kasich, who got murdered in the primaries by Trump. You know, and that's, of course, and then he's basically telling us, hey, America's a centrist country, with zero evidence of that. Zero evidence. Here's what I want you guys to do. Here's your homework assignment, okay, for the listeners. Don't take my word for any of this. Go to the polls. All the polls that they do about Medicare for all, about taxing the rich, about all that stuff. And look how people are voting in those polls. And you're going to find almost every case more than 50% support. Even the goddamn Fox News polls are saying that more than 50% of the people want government-run healthcare. Fox News, for Christ's sakes. And you think that we're a centrist country? We're not a centrist country. Here's one thing before we move on. Here's one thing to consider. This is from Bernie Sanders' Twitter feed. Florida, goofy ass crazy Florida with the pythons, posted they passed a $15 minimum wage in Florida. Okay, Montana, South Dakota, Arizona, New Jersey legalized marijuana. Colorado passed 12 weeks of paid family leave. Arizona, again on the list, increased taxes on the rich, and they're going to use that money to fund education. These are all leftist policies that are being enacted by the state, by the people. These are ballot initiatives that people are voting for. So how is this a centrist country? So I'm going to be a vulgar piece of shit, and I'm going to tell John Kasich, to eat a dick by coming out there and saying we're a centrist country with nothing to back it up. Ask Doug Jones if we're a centrist country. He barely beat a child molester in Alabama and then lost to a goddamn football coach named Tommy Tuberville. Sounds like a 80s new wave band. That's who we lost to. So he can just fuck right off with his nonsense. Now I will say this: I didn't look too much into the whole Georgia runoff thing, but I will say this, okay? If you are, if you're 17 and you're going to be 18 by the time the runoff happens, and I believe it's in January. Oh yeah, January 5th. You can register to vote now, so long as you're going to be 18 by January 5th. So if you haven't got a chance to register to vote, please register to vote. You know. So you figure, and like I said, I had a little bit to say about Stacey Abrams, but her only blemish to me is her association with Bloomberg, but she's done a tremendous amount of work in Georgia for years, trying to get people to vote. A lot of left-leaning organizations have been doing that work as well, but it doesn't mean that she's been doing any less work. So
I wonder, will the Republicans stick to the same strategy and remain close to Trump and promise to carry on his legacy, or will the Trump enthusiasm dwindle and less Republicans will turn out to vote for the Republican senators? Will these senators try to distance themselves from Trump now? And if so, will it hurt them? If Trump does something far out of the norms of a lame duck president with anger about his loss, could this also hurt the Republicans running? Knowing that Biden is elected and Republicans want to keep a check of his power, could this influence Republicans to come out to support their pick even more?
There are a lot of people. I was on MAGA on Twitter on the MAGA feed, and it's just the saddest short stories you ever want to read. It's like a little kid who just found out that Santa Claus isn't real, but he's not accepting it. So he's sitting in front of the fireplace and he's got his milk and cookies and he's waiting and waiting and waiting, and Santa ain't showing up. Like that's how they are right now. So as far as the voters go, I mean, if Trump runs again in 2024, he's going to do exactly what he did last time. He's going to mop the floor with them. As far as the senators and the congressmen and all the state folks, it all depends on if they can get away with it, with supporting Trump and keeping their careers. That's the thing. So you figure Mitch McConnell is already backing Trump. You got state legislators in Ohio.
I don't even see how he won again after all that mischief he does. Gee whiz, what is wrong with Kentucky, the dumbest state in the union?
South Carolina is a close second. No offense, Mercedes.
She left the line.
Oh, okay.
Yes, yeah, they're down there. But I think Kentucky, between Kentucky and Arkansas, they're running that spot. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Mississippi's been quiet though. They've been quiet.
They're starting to smarten up. That's why.
Yeah. Arizona's smartened up. They smartened up big time.
But we never considered Arizona a dumb state. These other states.
That's true.
Kentucky is definitely a dumb state.
I'm trying to remember her name, but she was the governor of Arizona back when Obama was president. That bony, goofy lady. And when they were doing, when Supreme Court passed that law that said that states can opt out of Obamacare expansion, she took the Obamacare expansion because she was like, yeah, I don't like Obama, but my people need health care. They need this Medicaid.
I wish our governor at the time, who was it, Tillis? I wish he did it.
Well, and it's I will say one thing just about Republicans in general. You figure Donald Trump slept with a porn star when his wife was pregnant with his kid. But
that's what made them love him more.
Supposedly, Cal
That's
Cunningham,
their wet dream.
He was like sexting with somebody. I don't know if he was actually having an affair with them, but he had like some racy text or something.
I've seen that. He should have dropped out. He played himself.
Yeah, and that's enough to sink his campaign. Him
He
having
would have got it though. He would have got it. You know, he would have got it if not for that. That was the hiccup.
absolutely.
Lust was his hiccup.
I
Sin
mean,
was his hiccup.
he fucked up, man. There's no other way to put it. Absolutely no other way to put it. But you figure there are some people like a Stephen Miller, you know, or a Lindsey Graham or a Ted Cruz, right? Who just love Trump. And I think they just love the humiliation that Trump gives them. You figure Ted Cruz, I mean, Trump called his, I'm pretty sure Ted Cruz hasn't had sex since 2016, at least not with his wife, because there's no way that his wife could let, you know, Donald Trump call her ugly and then just be like, oh, Ted, nah, yeah, that's not happening.
Right. Like, what kind of man are you? She probably don't even respect him.
Exactly. But sticking to Trump is good for their careers. There are some others who stick to Trump not because they respect him, but because they're terrified of him. Not terrified of Trump. I mean, Trump is just an overblown, bloated baby. It's his followers who they're afraid of. Because they figure in certain states, if the Trump supporters turn on them, you know, it could cost them their seats. So they don't respect Trump, but they're terrified of him. So that's why that's the whole thing, you know. So it's going to be a little bit of a chess match for some of these people. There are some people who are going to be wholeheartedly be behind Trump and support his ridiculous notions of that the election was fixed, and there are some who are going to keep their mouths shut and just try to fade into the background. All right. You know what? I could run my mouth all night. Mr. Blue, what are your final thoughts?
My final thoughts is you did your duty, you voted, I'm proud of you. But now the real work begins. Stay in their ass. Which means, you know, email, tweet, write letters, call, make sure that what you need to get done, what you want to get done, gets done by these elected officials, whether or not they're Republican or whether Democratic. There are your elected leaders, and they're supposed to represent you. So let your voice be heard.
Exactly. Keep your eye on state and local races, because those are the ones that can affect you directly the fastest. Okay. And make sure that you're not, I mean, put it like this. If there's a choice between a corporate Democrat and a Republican, I guess you got to take it all depends on, you know, how far their faces in Donald Trump's ass. I guess you got to vote for him. But if there is a primary and you have a chance to get rid of a corporate Democrat, get rid of the corporate Democrat. You know, unfortunately, leftists took a lot of beatings in this election, but we also got some victories. Mondaire Jones, Cori Bush, you know, Jamal Bowman. We got some victories. So the squad has been expanded. Okay, it's going to be a slow grind, but you know, we still have the runoff in Georgia where we can pick up a couple more seats, and then of course we're looking to 2022, and I'm going to try to find out whose seats are up for grabs, who we can get rid of, and who we can support. So, Mr. Blue, play us off, sir.
If you haven't already, please subscribe to the Urban Breakdown podcast. It's available on all streaming platforms, including iHeartRadio, including YouTube. You can also via flip phone or home phone at 1-857-385-7045. I'm going to say it again for those that didn't hear me the first time. 1-857-385-7045 to listen to it via phone. And that's the Urban Breakdown podcast featuring Mercer Prescott and his band of eclectic cronies. Cronies.